Guys, scruffy looking Nico the Nacho here. The first episode of Sly Cooper isn't going to be coming today because I have had other responsibilities to attend to. And by other responsibilities, I mean sleeping and procrastination of schoolwork that I don't want to do. I break under pressure. Sorry. The first episode will be coming out tomorrow though, so don't you worry about that. But I still wanted to put something out today. So I figured since I just finished with my Jak and Daxter Let's Play, I'd come at you guys with a little theory that I have regarding the lore of the series. I'm making this episode, it's not really an episode, it's just a standalone video, but I'm making this video with the assumption that people who watch it have already played through the Jak trilogy. So, if you care about spoilers, I'd advise you either go play the games, which is probably more, advisable, because if you wait for my Let's Plays on them, you'll be waiting for quite a while, because the sequels are far down the pipeline. I have a whole lot more games that I intend to play before I get to the sequels. So, yeah, if you care about if you care about spoilers, go play the games or watch the Let's Plays of them, and then come back here and we can talk about this theory. But for everybody who's sticking around here, let's get into it. So, you would remember that in the Jak and Daxter Let's Play in Rock Village, I was calling the warrior Mar. So, here's the bombshell. I believe that Mar is actually 3 people. So, I feel like to start out, I should address the fact that the events of Jak 1 and Jak 2 are a time loop. And time loops like that don't just sporadically materialize. There's gotta be an original timeline where the time loop springs up from. So, what happened in the original timeline? Well, obviously, there's no Jak and Daxter. Or, at least, there's no Jak and no Samos. Daxter probably still existed, but never turned into a rodent and probably was off doing whatever the heck he was doing before he met Jak. So, there are, however, the rest of the sages. Specifically, there's Gol and Maya. In this timeline, since Jak and Daxter aren't there to stop them, Gol and Maya successfully released the Dark Eco and fled the world. And that is what leads to the reappearance of the Metalheads, previously defeated by the Precursors, because the large quantities of Dark Eco make it so that the Metalheads, or the Horrorquan, as they're actually officially called, are able to once again thrive. So, the Precursors are then forced to step back in again, because the Metalheads are back, and they can't have that. Since the Metalheads just kind of spring back up over time, and they're not just unleashed in one huge wave like they are when the Rift Ring is activated in the beginning of Jak 2, Sandover Village isn't immediately destroyed. It's a much more gradual conflict that starts to arise, and the Precursors return to deal with it, and Mar, the original, which is the warrior from Rock Village, who is seeking to redeem himself after his failure at the hands of Claw, takes up his sword and begins the fight against the Metalheads. And he inspires the citizens of Rock Village to rally behind him. Meanwhile, the Explorer from Jak 1 is on his journey, and the Explorer encounters the Precursors at some point while all this stuff is starting to happen. And so he returns home with the help of the Precursors, and on his way home, he meets with Mar. He and Mar, they form a cahoots. Mar meets the Precursors realize that there's something special about Mar, and then Mar and the Explorer team up in their effort to fight back against the Metalheads. So, the Explorer tells Mar about Sandover Village and how he's got his shop set up over there, and it can be a possible other holdout against the Metalheads. So, the citizens of Rock Village and Sandover Village, with the help of Mar and the Explorer, kind of come together in their, basically resistance against the Metalhead Scourge. Of course, with the Precursors assisting as well. And then, Haven City. The initial plans for Haven City are drawn up off of the shore of off of the shore of Sandover Village. And to throw the precursor, I keep saying the precursors, I'm talking about the freaking metalheads, what the hell is my issue? To throw the metalheads off, Mar and the Explorer formulate a plan. The Explorer is going to take the precursor stone, which is in his cane, which is something that the metalheads are after, and flee through time with the help of the precursors. And he's going to take up the name of Mar, because at this point, the metalheads know that somebody named Mar is a thorn in their side, but they don't know yet which person is Mar. So Mar, the original, blesses the Explorer with the use of his name, and then the Explorer, under the name of Mar, he doesn't take the precursor stone, actually. They're after the precursor stone. The metalheads realize that the Explorer has the precursor stone, but what they don't realize when the Explorer starts fleeing through time with the help of the precursors is that the Explorer entrusts the precursor stone to original Mar. So, collecting my thoughts. Right, so, while the Explorer, under the name of Mar, is throwing the metalhead leader off of the scent of the precursor stone, while basically leading them on a wild goose chase through time and space with the help of the precursors and their rift rings, Mar, the original, is creating Haven City and creating the foundations of it with the help of the original inhabitants of Rock and Sandover Village, as well as any other refugees who happen to find their way to the city, creating the walls to defend the precursor stone and the citizens. And this, since Sandover Village isn't immediately destroyed, the amount of people that are here is a lot larger, and Haven City in this original timeline is a lot more well fortified. And Mar, as a reward for helping out the precursors, his bloodline is blessed with a gene that allows somebody down his timeline to be able to harness the power of Eco. It's not awakened in him, but somewhere down the timeline, it is prophesied that that gene will awaken in a descendant of his who would be the Chosen One. So, yeah, many years in the future, that Chosen One is born in the form of Jak to Deimos. And that much you know. Deimos is a descendant of Mar. Deimos is the current ruler of Haven City at this point, and he sires Jak. And, of course, Jak was a name that he adopted after he was sent back to Sandover Village. So, of course, Deimos knowing that it's basically a passed down fact through his family lineage that Mar, his ancestor, worked with the precursors and they gave him this blessing, and that at some point there would be the Chosen One who would be born in which this gene would be active. And so Jak is born, and he pretty quickly realizes that Jak has this gene active. So he realizes, oh shit, this is it. My son, he's the Chosen One. And so, to commemorate that fact, Deimos names Jak Mar after the original explorer. Not the original explorer, the explorer is... After the original warrior, that is Mar. So, officially, the original Jak is not the Mar, he is named after the Mar. But it gets twistier, it gets more confusing, because I'll get to that. Because there are multiple answers to the question of whether or not Jak is the Mar, in my head at least. But this original Jak is not the Mar, he is named after the Mar. So, events in Haven City play out pretty similarly to how they originally did. Deimos is overthrown, Baron Praxis takes the throne, Count Viger is trying to steal away Jak or the second Mar, basically because of his ego power gifts. And I can't remember exactly how in a nutshell, the underground is losing, and this original Haven City falls. And the underground, in their final desperate resistance against the Metalheads and against the Crimson Guard and Baron Praxis, find the original Rift Ring, and send Jak and Samos to the past. And that is what sets up the events of Precursor Legacy. So that is the original timeline. Haven City falls, but in a desperate attempt to hopefully create a better future on a different timeline, Jak and Samos go back to the past. So, they arrive back in the past, and the events of Precursor Legacy play out as we know them. And this time around, they defeat Jak and Daxter meet, and they defeat Golemaya, and so they are stopped from releasing the Dark Eco. However, you would know that at the beginning of Jak 2, Jak and Daxter used the Rift Ring and released the Metalheads. So, even though Golemaya's tampering doesn't release the Metalheads in that way, they still end up coming back. And this time in a lot fuller force, because a really pissed off Core, who realizes that he's been misdirected by the Explorer Mar and the cahoot that he had with Original Mar, is now traveling through time, and he takes his opportunity when the Rift Ring is opened and comes through and comes after Jak and brings his swarms of metalheads on into this new timeline, and Sandover Village gets absolutely bodied. And that much you guys know. So the events between when that happens and when Jak 2 begins, like at the present time in Haven City, play out sort of similarly, except for the fact that this time around, Sandover Village gets immediately wrecked. So it's only the people of Rock Village who are holding out, and the Explorer... I'm not sure if Samos tells the Explorer, explains the Explorer when he comes to Sandover Village what happened and the history of everything, but I feel like that's something that might have happened, so perhaps the Explorer on his journeys comes back with the Precursors and meets with Original Mar and tells him that, look, there's some time travel shenanigans going on, we need to conspire together, and we need to go down to where that ruined village is right now and start a defensive city and do all this stuff that I already explained happened, but of course it's a lot more dire of a situation. Because in this original timeline, the city starts out a lot stronger in the beginning, but it still falls in the end. But in the newest timeline, it's a lot the situation is a lot more dire, it's a lot more tight, because the Metalheads now have already got a hold of Sandover Village. So the people of Rock Village, who are led by the warrior Mar and the Explorer, have a massive fight to go through to take the ruins of Sandover Village and dub what was previously Samos' hut as the sacred site. And of course they found Haven City and construct the city around the Precursor Stone, and the rest is history for Jak 2. And at which point the timeline can continue. The time loop, I should say, because they find the Rift Ring, Jak and Daxter are sent back in time at the end of the events of Jak 2 that actually happened. Not Jak and Daxter, just Jak gets sent back in time. I'm sorry, I'm screwing up my words. And that's basically it. So it's basically like a Holy Trinity type of deal. I'm looking through my notes right now to see if I've missed anything, but of course there's Onin, who's all-knowing, all-aware of all this separate timeline shenanigans and shit. But, so, obviously, Onin plays a part in this as well. But here is a major twist. Here's where the major twist comes in. Because at the end of Jak 3, we know that Jak goes and blasts off who knows where with the Precursors. So, original Jak was named after the Mar. However, this Jak... I've lost track of if this is the original Jak or second Jak, but he goes back in time and he goes back to where the starting of the war against the Metalheads was, and where the starting of Haven City and everything was happening, and meets with the Explorer and the original Mar, and becomes yet another Mar in this branching kind of just a group of multiple Mars. And it kind of I kind of feel like maybe this could be some sort of inspiration for the House of Mar, of, you know, multiple people perhaps going under the alias of Mar, perhaps, if you know what I'm getting at with that. So, in a way, Jak goes back and sort of becomes his own ancestor, because I'm thinking over the time of these timeline shenanigan events becoming more and more muddled as the time loop keeps repeating and repeating and repeating, that who the original Mar was starts to kind of get lost to time. And I'm thinking that maybe depictions of Mar kind of start to become this muddled mess / hybrid of the multiple Mars that there have been, of the original warrior, who was the original person named Mar, the explorer who took up the name Mar, and Jak Mar, named after Mar, the descendant of Mar, who goes back and basically takes up Mar's legacy for himself while still working with Mar. And kind of would make sense to why, if Samos knew about this kind of stuff, why he would seek out the Explorer and have the Explorer take up the role as Jak's non-biological uncle, because he plays such a huge role in this sort of deep dive in the lore that it would make sense for him to be a separate guardian of basically the Chosen One, this child who is so important to everything that is supposed to happen, that is supposed to unfold later on down the timeline. And it's it's definitely a whole lot of time travel shenanigans, but this theory, it makes the background lore a lot more interesting, filling in the blanks of all that stuff. So that's my headcanon, at least. If you guys like the idea of it, well, there you go. You can take that up for yourselves as well. So yeah, that's my theory. That's the Mar theory, as far as I'm concerned. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to see them. I'll be hitting you guys with the first episode of Sly Cooper tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. If you like my material, hit subscribe, hit the bell, because I have 2 full Let's Plays under my belt now. I've got Jak and Daxter done, and I did Ratchet and Clank as my first one, so y'all can watch some of that stuff as well. I'm a small YouTuber. I'm just starting out, so all the support is appreciated. So, this has been Nico the Nacho. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm out. Peace.